So request you to keep your mics and the camera.
Even with the app, it's not. Maybe I'll do this thing. Let's see.
So good evening, everyone, and a warm welcome. So thanks for joining. This is an Ask Me Anything session for the research programs in CSA Department. I am Satish Govindarajan, a faculty member in the Computer Science Department. And we have faculty members, students, and recently graduated alumni from our department who are panelists who will be answering your questions. Now, the format of the meeting is as follows. We will initially have a presentation by the chairperson of the department, Professor Vinod Ganapathy, who will tell you about the department and the research programs. And this would be followed by the question answer session, which is the primary focus of this meeting. Now, to ask your questions, kindly restrict your questions to the research programs. We have another meeting on Wednesday for the MTech course programs, which I will welcome all of you to join if you're interested in the course programs. So kindly ask questions related to the PhD and MTech research programs in today's session. And the way to ask your questions is you will have on the right side of your panel a question answer panel where you will have a button ask a question. And if you click on that, you can type your name and type your question. Please be brief and precise and concise in your questions. And so with this introduction, let me hand over to Professor Vinod Ganapathy, who will be presenting about the department and the research programs. Request Professor Vinod Ganapathy to take over.
Thank you, Satish. May I share my screen now?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah. My screen is visible, hopefully.
Yes, I can see your screen.
Okay. All right. So good evening and warm welcome to all. My name is Vinod Ganapathy and I'm a faculty member here in the Department of Computer Science and Automation. And I am the current chair and it's my pleasure and privilege to tell you about our department and to answer your questions about our research programs. Let me just start with a very brief history of our institute. The Indian Institute of Science is one of the oldest institutes of its kind in India. And many of you may not be aware of how it came to be. So here's a very short story. In 1893, J.N. Tata, the great industrialist, he was on a ship from Japan to Vancouver. And there on the ship, he met Swami Vivekananda. And he expressed to him the need for a research institute that was completely indigenous, based in India. And so he wrote a letter to Swami Vivekananda in 1896, sort of reminding him of this conversation. And he stated these words that are shown in red on the slide. It seems to me that no better use can be made of the ascetic spirit than the establishment of monasteries or residential halls for men dominated by the spirit, where they should live with ordinary decency and devote their lives to the cultivation of the sciences, both natural and humanistic. It is this spirit that we seek to uphold and that we seek to live by in the institute. So the third gentleman on the slide is the great Maharaja of Mysore, who donated the land on which the institute is now housed. And Swami Vivekananda played a huge role. Unfortunately, J.N. Tata did not live long enough to see his vision realized. And in 1909, the institute was created. Let me now tell you a little bit about our department. It was founded in 1969. We completed 50 years in 2019. As of today, our Department of Computer Science and Automation Based on research output, it is the top ranked department in India. In fact, it is the only Indian CS department that's ranked in the top 100 in the world rankings. This is based upon this site called csrankings.org that tracks publications at the top research venues in computer science. Our department boasts a global presence at all international research forums, such as flagship conferences, journals, symposia, editorial boards of journals, and program committees. And our graduates, our students, are highly sought after both nationally and internationally, both by academic universities as well as industrial labs and development houses. Our department features all of the core research areas that you would associate with a traditional computer science department, which includes AI and ML, computer systems, and theory. And in this slide, I have attempted to just give a snapshot of some of the ongoing projects in our department. So, for example, we have projects in fairness in AI and ML, stochastic control, reinforcement learning, deep learning, natural language processing, and so on. And in computer systems, we have system support for ML, GPUs and domain-specific accelerators, database and query optimization, formal verification, as well as security. And in theory, we have foundational work on circuit complexity, secure multi-party computation, zero-knowledge proofs, and cryptanalysis. Many of my colleagues take these fundamental results that they work on and also apply to areas of national and international interest, such as agriculture, healthcare, business analytics, and so on. Our department has several degree programs, of course, the PhD and the MTech by research, about which today's AMA session is. We also have the MTech by coursework and the MTech in AI sessions, on which you will hear a little bit on 2 days from now. Today's AMA session is on the MTech by research and the PhD programs, which we call our research programs. A little bit about our own student body. We have a total of 294 students as of 2023, and you can see the entire strength of our department. I've grayed out the numbers related to the coursework program. I have only shown the numbers related to PhD and MTech research. As you can see, there is a very large body of research students in our department, probably the largest such academic department in India, with a healthy male to female ratio and a good representation of underrepresented categories. So I would like to tell you a little bit about what a PhD degree entails, since many of you may have a question about such a degree. The main goal of a PhD degree in one sentence is that you must do high quality original research as evidenced by publications by you at top tier conferences and journals in your area. And what this means practically in terms of the progress of your PhD degree is that when you come in during the first year, you do some coursework, probably around 4 to 5 courses. You select your advisor for the guidance of your thesis, and then you do some original research. This is followed by a qualification exam that we call the comprehensive exam that is supposed to be taken before the end of your 3rd year. And then after that, you become a PhD candidate officially, and you do more research, present more papers at top tier forums, followed by a PhD colloquium and submission of your thesis before the end of your 6th year. Your PhD thesis is a serious piece of scholarship, and it's reviewed by your thesis is reviewed by a panel of national and international experts. And once it's accepted, you come forward for your PhD defense, and you're granted your PhD degree. I will also tell you a little bit about our MTech research degree. The requirement of doing high quality research remains unchanged. However, there are small differences in the way you progress in your degree. Of course, it's an MTech degree at the end of the day, right? So advisor selection and coursework happens during the first year, followed by which you do original research as well as publication or submission of an original research paper. This is followed by a colloquium and a submission of your thesis before the end of 2.5 years. It's reviewed by a panel of experts, and then you have your defense. As a rough thumb rule, the MTech research degree requires roughly 1/3 of the amount of work of a PhD degree. So you may also have questions about what happens after you earn a PhD degree. And here we are proud to say that CSA's PhD graduates are placed at the top academic department industrial research labs worldwide. Here's just a small sampling, right? So our PhD graduates have gone on to be placed at Rutgers University, Amsterdam, TU Munich, Microsoft Research, Google, NVIDIA, as well as the top IITs in India. And historically, and this is just over the past 6 years, and if you were to look historically, over 60 of our alumni are faculty at leading universities worldwide, including Harvard, UT Austin, CMU, Rutgers, Purdue, and so on. Just to give you a few examples of recent graduates over the last couple of years, we have, for example, Arpita Biswas, who finished a postdoc at Harvard after a PhD here, and she is joining Rutgers University shortly in New Jersey as a computer science assistant professor. Ashish Panwar, who was a PhD from last year, has joined as a senior researcher at Microsoft Research India. Divya Ravi, who did her PhD in cryptography, did a postdoc at Aarhus and has joined the University of Amsterdam in the Netherlands as assistant professor. Shruti Shekhar was a postdoc at Berkeley and she is shortly joining IIT Bombay. And Shikhar Vashisht was a postdoc at Carnegie Mellon and he's joining Google Research India as a research scientist. Both Shruti and Shikhar are winners or honorable mention award winners of the ACM India Doctoral Dissertation Award, about which I will tell you shortly. Likewise, after an MTech research degree, you might be curious to know what comes. Here, there are several paths possible. You might decide that after your MTech research degree, that you really enjoy research and that you want to pursue a career in research. This is certainly a possibility. You would have done a significant amount of work, research work in your MTech research degree, and this experience that you gain will greatly benefit your PhD application, either here or in India or abroad. You might decide that you might want to go for an industry career, and in which case you take up a job in industry. Our MTech research graduates have been presented with excellent opportunities, both via campus placement as well as on their own, thanks to the expertise that they have gained working on these research projects. Or you might decide to commercialize your research idea via a startup, and that's also very welcome. I would like to clarify the differences between our MTech research degree and the traditional MTech by coursework degree, about which you will hear on March 6th. And many of you might have questions about why you should choose your MTech research degree instead of an MTech coursework degree. So here I will offer a few reasons. You might be somebody who is thinking about a career in research, but are not sure yet about the long-term commitment required for a PhD degree. And in such cases, an MTech by research degree is an ideal midway point, right? You can feel out what research is, you can get the feel for publishing papers, doing original research, and then if you're interested, you can continue. The other reason is that you might want to take fewer courses as compared to an MTech by coursework student, but spend more time working on a research project and developing deep expertise in an area of your choice. So just by comparison, the MTech coursework degree typically requires 10 courses and a year-long project in your second year. In contrast, the MTech by research degree only requires 4 courses and it requires a 2-year-long project where you will be doing original research. Some examples of our campus placement statistics, and this is from the past 2 years. Our graduates are very highly sought after. And these are some numbers. The maximum CTC that we are aware of is 59.96 lakhs, and the average is around 28.46 lakhs. I must point out that these statistics are mostly relevant for MTech and MTech by research graduates. Our PhD graduates generally go on for research interview style placement or postdoc placement. And this is just generally done in a one-on-one fashion directly with the company or the group that you're joining or the university that you're joining. And so they don't go via our campus placement, right? So these numbers over here are generally reflective of our MTech placement statistics. Our MTech graduates are also welcome to go and join the industry for internships, short-term internships. And a PhD degree, for example, during the course of a PhD degree, you can do up to 6 months of internship according to the rules of the institute. Our MTech coursework students and MTech research students also go for 3-month-long internships. So now let me also answer this question of why you should come to CSA and to IISc, and I will offer you 2 reasons. The first reason, of course, is that when you join CSA and IISc, you'll be joining an excellent academically focused student peer group. So the students here are just absolutely top-notch, and they have gone on to win several extremely competitive worldwide fellowships, such as the Google PhD Fellowship, Google Women in Engineering Awards, IBM PhD Fellowships, Microsoft Research India Fellowships, TCS Fellowships, and so on. They are routine winners of Best Paper Awards. I spoke a few slides ago about the ACM India Doctoral Dissertation Award. This is offered by the Association for Computing Machinery in India. And we are very proud to say that our students have been regular features here, either outright winning the award or winning honorable mentions. You can see 2016, 17, 21, 22, 23, our students have won these awards. This is a testament to the high quality of research that's going on here. The second reason, of course, is world-renowned faculty. Our faculty members are highly decorated with international awards. We have ACM fellows, IEEE fellows, winners of the Infosys and the Shanti Swarup Bhatnagar Prize, as well as extremely competitive fellowships such as the INA Fellowship, JC Bose National Fellow, INSA Fellow, NASI Fellow, and so on. Recently, ACM India also started this Early Career Award for early career researchers. And we are very proud to report that Siddharth Burman won this in 2023, and our colleague Uday Reddy got an honorable mention in 2020 for the same award. So very highly decorated faculty. Finally, I would like to point out that our department has a very rich culture of entrepreneurship. Many of you may not know that Wipro, in fact, was incubated right here in our department. The room where it was incubated still stands. It was started here in 1970 as a small project, and now, of course, they are a major giant. Strand Life Sciences is a major health sciences company that was also started by former faculty members here. Mimic is a company that does AR/VR simulation for healthcare, also started here. And Polymage Labs is a startup that is currently being incubated by our CSA faculty member Uday Reddy. They do machine learning for image processing pipelines. Let me talk briefly about the modalities for admission. For PhD admission, both BTech degree holders as well as MTech degree holders can apply, including those who will get their degree in 2024. BTech degree holders need to clear the cutoff in GATE and CS. That's the requirement. Unless you are from a CFTI institute, centrally funded technical institute, with a CGPA of 8.0 or above. You will also get an MTech degree en route to the PhD if you are admitted. The MTech degree holders, GATE is desirable. Right? That's the way that you apply for our program. And the process is that if you're shortlisted for a research interview, you must clear an in-person research interview to be held during the week of May 13th to 17th this year. And the questions for this interview will generally cover the materials listed in the GATE syllabus. Let me also tell you a little bit about our part-time PhD possibilities. There is a program called the External Research Program at the Indian Institute of Science, where full-time industry professionals who are co-supervised by a mentor at their company and an advisor at CSA can pursue a PhD degree. However, this comes with several caveats. There are several criteria for the company and the mentor to qualify, and it requires long-term commitment from both the company and the mentor. It also requires a pre-approval from the faculty member at CSA who is willing to co-advise the student. There are also quality improvement programs as well as ISRO and defense employees who can pursue part-time degrees at our department. For the MTech research program, BTech degree holders can apply. You need to clear the GATE cutoff. MTech degree holders, those who already hold an MTech degree, are not eligible to apply for the MTech research program. And the process here is very similar. You should clear the research interviews, for which, if you're shortlisted, it will be held during the week of May 13th to 17th. And the questions will cover the material listed in the GATE syllabus. So for definitive information, please visit this particular link that is shown on the slide about the admission modalities. This is published by our admissions office, and you will find the latest information over there. Finally, let me conclude with some relevant links. These links contain answers to some commonly frequently asked questions. For example, basic philosophical questions about why pursue a PhD. There was a very nice program that was held last year, including, we are happy to answer some of these questions, but you might find this session useful. And there was a program also conducted last year called Gate to EECS. Again, you might be interested in the questions that came about over there. They are both listed if you follow these websites. With that, let me hand the stage back to Satish. Thank you very much. We are happy to entertain your questions.
Thanks, Professor Vinod Ganapati. So the links are, the QR codes are still there in case you want to scan them. Meanwhile, we will now move to the question and answer session. So I request you to post your questions in the Q&A So as mentioned, you have a Q&A tab on the right side, and you have an ask a question button. Once you click that, you can type your name and the question, and then your questions will be answered.
Is it visible, the screen sharing?
So we'll start in about 30 seconds or so.
Let's start. I'm increasing the process. Yeah.
Okay, so let's get started with the question and answers.
See that the question is visible.
So the question which we are going to take, the question is also visible on your screen, and I will also be reading out the question. This question, I would request Professor Vinod Ganapathy to answer it. And the question is, what is the process of getting admission for international students? Do we need to give a GATE exam? Professor Vinod?
Yeah. So if you're an international student, I would highly encourage you to go and visit the website of the Office of International Relations at the Indian Institute of Science. You will get it with a simple Google search of Office of International Relations. The short answer is that there is no GATE for international students. You apply with your CV, and there's a separate interview process other than the one that we spoke about today for admission of international students. Your research interview, if you're an international student, is not held during the week of May 13th to 17th. It will be held separately, and you will be notified separately if you're shortlisted.
Thank you, Professor Vinod.
This is also Vinod can answer.
The next question, which is displayed on your screen, is the interview and written test for the PhD going to be in person or online? Professor Vinod Ganapathy, quick response from you.
Yes, the interview and the written test are both going to be in-person events. It is going to be scheduled for the week of May 13th to 17th. The precise slot for which you're selected, if you're shortlisted, will be intimated to you.
Moving on to the next question. So this question, I would request Professor Narahari first to take it, and then followed by Vishakha Patel. The question is publishing papers compulsory? And I guess this is for both the MTech research as well as the PhD programs. Professor Narahari?
Yes, thank you, Professor Satish. Good evening, everyone. Professor Vinod Ganapathy already showed a slide where he clearly stated that the expectation from a PhD thesis or an MTech research thesis would be publications in top tier conferences and journals. In some sense, that is the minimum expectation for PhD and MTech research. There is no written rule on that. There is no written rule on the number of publications which are expected to be published. However, IISc maintains rigor and a certain minimum standard for its PhD program as well as the MTech research program. We do have an expectation that you would publish, for example, for your PhD thesis, at least 3 to 4 publications in flagship venues. When I say flagship venues, these are highly selective conferences and highly selective journals. And all of you would appreciate that in computer science, conferences are as important as journals. Sometimes some of the conferences are even more prestigious than journal publications. So the expectation is to publish in highly selective conferences and journals. And similarly, every MTech research thesis also, there is an expectation that you publish at least 1 or 2 research papers. There have been instances in IISc where students have published many more papers, and IISc will be very happy if you publish as many papers as possible. So thank you, Professor Satish. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Professor Narahari. I would now request Vishaka to also add. Vishaka is a PhD student who has just submitted her thesis. Vishaka, please go ahead.
Yes, sir. So Professor Narahari spoke about the expectations from the institute. I would also like to add why it's beneficial from a student's perspective to have good publications. So from the perspective of, say, after MTech research, either applying for PhD or after PhD applying for a postdoc or a job in the industry or any of these options, one of the key factors on which you get evaluated is the kind of publications you have and what conferences or journals they're published in. So in addition to just being helpful for your thesis, they also serve as a good addition to have to your profile, which helps you become more visible for such kind of jobs. And even like the postdoc positions or industry positions would determine whether you're a good fit based on the publications and the venues where they are published. Professor Satish, yeah, that's essentially my answer.
Thank you very much, Vishaka. So next question is GATE. Is GATE DA data analytics paper considered in the admission process of MTech research? If what is the expected cutoff rank? Can I request Professor Vinod Ganapati to answer this question?
Sure. So for this year, GATE data analytics paper is not the things that you can take for admission to the CSA department. It still remains the GATE CS paper. We cannot answer any questions about the estimated or the expected cutoff rank. The main reason is because that is decided by our admissions unit based upon the list of applicants, and also because the estimated cutoff depends based on your category. So for this reason, we cannot give a specific number here. I'm sorry about that.
His voice broke up, right? So can you repeat first part?
Would you like me to repeat?
Yes.
Your voice broke up a bit.
Okay. Okay. So the GATE data analytics paper is not something that that we are considering this year. You have to take the GATE CS paper for admission into the computer science and automation department this year. We cannot answer any questions about the estimated or expected cutoff rank. Main reason is because that is decided by our academic section and also our admission section, and also because the cutoff depends on which category you belong to. So we cannot commit to any specific numbers here in this ANA session.
I just wanted to clarify that GATE DA is GATE Data Science and Artificial Intelligence.
Thanks, Professor Narahari. Okay, moving on to the next question. I think this is an important question which many of you have asked. What to expect in the interview if I am shortlisted? So I would like to, just like the previous question, I will ask Professor Narahari to first give a from the faculty or the committee which will be evaluating you, and then I will ask the students who have gone through the process to share their experiences. So, Professor Narahari, if you can first
Yes.
briefly say about interview preparation, your views on that.
Sure. Thank you, Professor Satish. I think the interview that happens in the CSA department, whether it is for the PhD program or the MTech research program, is a highly structured interview. And the interview is more about finding out from the candidate how solid or how sound the candidate is on all the foundational aspects of the subject, rather than on recalling from memory. So the interview typically will be of duration starting from, it could be anywhere from 20 minutes to 45 minutes to even 1 hour sometimes. It will be a very friendly interview. You would see 3 or 4 or 5 faculty members in front of you. And in CSA, there are 3 streams or 3 clusters. The first one is the theory cluster. The second one is the computer systems cluster. And the third one is the AI/ML or the intelligent systems cluster. And what we have done is to identify core subjects for each one of these clusters. For example, if you're looking at intelligent systems, the core subjects there would be linear algebra, probability and statistics, and sometimes optimization. So what we would like to do is to check your proficiency in some of these foundational subjects first. So typically, the interview would start with some questions on, if it's intelligent systems, for example, the questions would be from, let's say, probability and statistics, or from linear algebra. And depending on how the interview goes, you may be asked questions on both these subjects, both probability and linear algebra. And then if you are a PhD candidate, the department also would like to see whether you have done any research work already, or you are familiar with the research process. So we will be asking some questions on any problems that you might have already worked on. So in some sense, the interview will be a test of how well you have understood the fundamentals of the subject, how well you have understood the problem solving process, and how well you're able to think on your feet. And during the interview process itself, you will be getting a lot of hints from the faculty members. The expectation is that there is no need for you to answer the question completely. However, the way in which you progress towards a particular answer for a question, and the way you're able to correctly think about a problem, the way you're able to understand what is the crux of the problem. So these are some things that we would be closely observing during the interview process itself. The best possible way in which to prepare for an interview is depending on which stream you are interested in. You already know beforehand what are the subjects in which the questions are going to be asked. So you would have already done those subjects during your BTech program or MTech program. So you will have to actually look at all the key results, foundational topics, and maybe solve some problems, maybe take some standard textbooks, and be well prepared for the interview. Spend at least several weeks, maybe 3-4 weeks attending, preparing for the interview. That will go a long way. If you do not come prepared for the interview, you will very surely find that you will not be able to meet the expectations here. Having said that, the interview would be a very pleasant experience for you. Nothing to be worried about the interview. There will be enough friendly suggestions and hints which would be given to you during the interview process itself. And let me tell you that you will actually enjoy the interview process here. So with that, I'll close and maybe back to Satish. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Professor Narahari. Now, from the students' point, I would like to request Dhruvan Chaudhary to talk about preparing for MTech research interviews. Dhruvan, can you?
Yeah, thank you, Professor.
Yeah.
When I got selected for interview, I got the Google sheet and I had to select which subjects I am strong in. So I was applying in a system stream. So there was the operating system and computer architecture and basic system subjects. So I had to select the subjects. So I knew like what to expect. So whatever subject I was strong in, so I selected that subject, and then I went through all the GATE syllabus for that subject. And my interview went for almost 30 minutes, and I felt like more than what I am answering, professors were interested in how I am arriving at that answer. So like there was a lot of back and forth. Like if I answer something, there will be counter questions, and so then I answer, and then other counter question. So there was a lot of back and forth, and interviewers were very friendly. So if if I don't know some concept, some background concept for that question, they were happy to explain it. But like they were more interested in how I am thinking, like how I am arriving at that answer. So that was my interview experience. So basic gate level topics will be sufficient, but basic should be clear.
Thank you, Dhruvan.
Thank you.
Now, I would like to request Girisha Shankar, who's a PhD student, to maybe share his views about preparing for the PhD interview. Girisha? Girisha, can you hear me? Okay, maybe Girisha is not hearing us. Would any of the PhD students, would you like to take it up? Tasi, do you want to share your views on PhD preparation?
Sure. Yeah. Am I audible?
Yeah, please go ahead. Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's similar. I don't think, I mean, I have not appeared for the MTech research interview, but I think I completely concur with Professor Narahari. It felt like the fundamentals are being tested. So make sure that all the concepts that we go through are clear and the basics are clear. Yeah, that's the one pointer I have. And yeah, and I also agree with Professor Narahari that the interview is actually a very fun and enjoyable process. So if you can just stay calm, and it also feels like the panel actually wants you to succeed. So they'll give you ample hints as well if you're nervous. But preparation wise, yeah, just focus. Like I think you need to pick some 3 topics for your pool. So make sure that your fundamentals are clear and you practice enough. And yeah, you need at least 2 to 3 weeks to prepare for your interview. That's all I have to say.
Thanks, Atasi.
Yeah.
So that hopefully gave you some insights into the interview process and how to prepare well for it. I hope that you apply and come for our interviews, do well in the interviews and join us. So moving on. The next set of questions is about part-time, about ERP program. So I'll read out the questions. What research programs are the working professionals eligible for apart from ERP? Is it required to finalize our internal and external supervisors before we start applying? The candidate should finalize the internal guide or the professor under whom she has to perform the research. Could you explain how an applicant finalizes his or her guide from IISc while applying for the course itself? So these are all centered around the ERP program. I would like to first request Professor Raghavan to talk about it, and then I will also ask a student participant, ERP student to go through it. Ravindra to answer after Raghavan finishes. Professor Raghavan?
Yeah. Program. It is available both for PhD and MTech research, and it is external registration is simply means part-time program sponsored by the company. So it has to be sponsored by the company, and there are some conditions like the company must have been in India for a certain number of years, and the employee must have worked for the company for 1 year or some. The exact rules you can look up on the website. So there are some conditions. So under those conditions, when the company sponsors the candidate can be admitted under the ERP/part-time program to a PhD or MTech research. They have to clear the research interview of the department like all other research students to be admitted. So other than ERP, do we have any other program? Yes, there is a MTech online program, which is primarily a course-based program with a tech project. So that is like an MTech program, which I will not talk about much today. So that is also there. So today we are focusing mostly on the MTech research and PhD. So I'm talking about the ERP programs of that. So the next question is it required to finalize the internal external supervisors? Yes. So you want to start interacting with faculty members. So by internal supervisor, you mean the supervisor in your company. I think external supervisor, you probably mean the supervisor in IISc. So first you want to start contacting certain IISc faculty members who work in areas similar to what is your research interest, and have several meetings with them and convince them about your suitability to pursue a part-time PhD program. So, and you also need to find a person with a PhD in your organization. So these things have to happen before the admission can be completed. So, and the research interview is also clearing the research interview, just like all other research student applicants, is also a critical criterion. So I think I answered the question. So Ravindra, do you want to add some words?
Yeah, so it is better that if a ERP student want to apply for IISc, he should identify the correct, the supervisor who he should have an understanding of the at least some set of problems on which he wanted to work on, and have a bit of clarity on that, and should identify a supervisor who have similar interests and approach them, I would say at least 6 to 8 months before, and see whether those are the problems of mutual interest to both external supervisor as well as the candidate. And then I think, yes, the internal guide is very important. If you have a good internal guide, you please involve him as well in the discussions if required. But several rounds of discussions are with IISc to be supervisor is good, so that both of you are in in the same line in understanding. Apart from that, there is also organization has to give some kind of agree that they should. These are in the guidelines. You can see you should be in particular position and you should not be transferred and things like that. Those things are, I think, administrative procedures, but your organization should endorse you for these programs in terms of giving, they are agreeing for this. I think it is either by HR or some kind of higher authority in the organization. Okay. So in a way, the next question is also answered. Yes, the candidate should finalize internal guide or professor under who he has to perform the research. How to, could you explain how the applicant finalize his guide from IISc while applying the course? As I mentioned, at least in my case, I have some problems in hand which I wanted to pursue. And with those problems, I approached. I looked at IISc website who are working in those areas, and then once I found, I made a contact and then personally visited them, explained why I wanted to do and what are those problems. And then there are several interactions. These interactions went more than 8 months. And then finally, once the guide convinced, then I applied for the interview and gone through the interview process. There is also a wage limit. You please check that. I think it should be available on IISc website. Yeah. I hope
Thank you.
that clears.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ravindra. Moving on. It's a question from someone with a background in ECE.
The question will apply to any other branches.
Yeah, so this is also applicable for people who want to shift from a different branch. So I'll read out the question. I'm pursuing my BTech in ECE branch and I want to start research in my field, but I don't know how and where to start. Please suggest me, and I want a chance to do research in your institute as an internship. Right? So I assume that you want to shift to computer science and do research in a domain within computer science. Can I request Atasi to handle this question?
Sure. So they have said that they want to start research. I want to start research in my field, so I'm not sure if they want to switch or they're just looking for a way to get into research.
Yeah, we'll assume that they want to switch to a domain in computer science, which is what this session is about. It's not about other areas of engineering.
Okay, so I think it's important to look at the difference in the courses that are offered in computer science and ECE. And for example, courses like design and analysis of algorithms are essential or are the basics for someone to start understanding the different fields and topics in CSA. Similarly, like for systems, there would be basic courses like operating systems. So I would say the first step would be to try and explore the different subfields and find out an area of interest. And I guess talking to your professors of CSA in the same college or somewhere else would be helpful to see to find out what are the courses that you might want to look into before trying to make a switch. And regarding internship, I think I don't know if it's there this year, but there used to be a program called the Narendra Summer Internship Program. So that is something that you can look into and apply. And also another good way is another strong suggestion I would have is to do this after going through the basic courses and after your second or third year where you have more exposure to different areas. And you can always look at the profiles of different professors on areas that you might be interested in and look at the kind of things that they're working on. Maybe zero in on 2 or 3 professors that whose work interests you and even if you don't fully understand, try to go through some recent papers or understand the kind of research they want to do. It's not necessary that you will understand everything in the first go, just to get an idea, and then communicate with them, try to reach out to them saying that, okay, this is an area of interest, and if you have the required background knowledge for that area, then that is another way to reach out to them. Yeah, these are the two ways, I guess, you can look for internships.
Satish, may I add one point here?
Please go ahead.
Yeah, so I would also like to pitch the CSA Sparks program that was just started this year, which is a pre-doc program. So not an internship, but rather a year-long or a 2-year-long commitment where you get exposed to research. That's a separate program. You can just Google CSA Sparks and you will get a link to the program.
Thanks for the pointer. So moving on, is the interview and written test in person for international students as well? For international students, the interview is completely online. Nothing is in person. Moving on, how should one resolve the dilemma between an industry role and the MTech program right after one's bachelor's in terms of their long-term advantages? Specifically because in CS streams, there are a good number of jobs available even for BTech grads. So I would first request Professor Vinod to give a faculty perspective, and then I will ask students to also share their views. Professor Vinod?
Sure. So the main advantage of either a MTech program, in this case, as you were asking, or a PhD program, is that it lends you depth, right? So any of the MTech courses here take you much deeper and give you a lot more exposure to certain topics than you would be exposed in a BTech program. So if that is the kind of thing that that interests you, you should certainly pursue either a master's or a PhD. It also opens up a different set of job possibilities, right? Specialized roles, roles where the particular kind of expertise that you are getting trained for, and so on, right? So this is what I would say are the main advantages. Satish, maybe you can also ask some of our former students to ask.
Correct. Can I request Snigdha to give the views on this? Snigdha?
Sure, Professor Satish. So yeah, it's an important question, and it was something I was faced with when I did my BTech. So I completed my BTech and directly joined the PhD program, the direct PhD program at IISc. So I think, and at that time I had a job offer, a really good job offer in hand, and I had the admission offer also with me. There were a bunch of things that I considered. The main thing was that I did want to pursue higher studies at some point of time in my future. As Professor Ganpati said, I did want to explore certain topics in more depth. I get trained more on them. So to me, it was a choice between doing it now or doing it later, as there were no financial constraints for me, and that is a big deal for a lot of us, that we need to accumulate certain wealth and then go for higher studies. That is the situation for a lot of us. So if that is your concern, you should go for a job. But if that is not, I would say that you should get done with your studies as soon as possible, because later it becomes harder and harder. I mean, I have been in contact with the ERP students as well. It's even harder for them. So the possibility of doing a PhD or a master's is always open at IISc, no matter where you are in your career. But I would say that immediately after your BTech, if there are no additional financial constraints, or if you are not against, so to say, higher studies, you should consider doing it as soon as possible. If you're not interested in higher studies at all, if you really want to go and work in a startup or be a part of a company and make an impact there, then also you should join your job. Later, you may realize that you may or may not like it, but at that point of time, the key motivation would be whether you want to explore certain things more or not. Yeah, that would be my 2 cents.
So, Professor Satish, Mayank also would like to say something more on this.
I was just about
Go on.
it. Mayank, yeah. Mayank, please share your views since you have finished your PhD. Go ahead, Mayank.
So in addition to what has already been said, now naturally, if you are interested in research, then MTech is for you. But taking this question purely as something with respect to career choices, I am assuming that the person who's asking this question wants to grow in the career. So, and before I answer, I would like to say that this is my personal opinion based on what I have seen in my time in the industry. How that has transpired and what has happened with my friends. Now, first things first, there are two types of careers in the industry. One where your career gets better if you have an MBA. If that is where you want to head your career towards, then definitely MTech is not for you. You can think of an MTech or a PhD only if you want to go into the technical side. Now, within the technical side, like Professor has already covered, it will help you a lot. You will learn a lot. You'll be able to do a lot more if you have an MTech or a PhD. But assuming you're not interested in that and you're only interested in furthering your career, your salary, and your position. To answer that, from my experience, what I have noticed is uh, a BTech from IISc versus an MTech from IISc, or an MTech from IISc versus a PhD from IISc, the difference will be very small. It will be incremental, not much. So perhaps I would ask you not to pursue. But again, I'm assuming that you're not from IISc, so your BTech is from some other college. When I compare somebody who's done a BTech from some other college and an MTech from IISc, there I see a huge gap in the career. So assuming that you're not from IISc, I would strongly suggest you to go ahead and do an MTech. But of course, if the kind of career progression you're looking for is something that requires an MBA, then I would say do not waste your time in MTech. Go ahead and do an MBA. Thank you.
Thanks, Mayank. I would also like to request Gokulnath Pillai, who completed his MTech research, to share his views. Gokulnath? Gokulnath, can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. So I would just like to say that actually I had this dilemma right after I finished my BTech that if I can get a well-paying job, why do I need to do a master's? My first primary reason was to go into depth, as Professor Vinod mentioned. I knew that the understanding that I had at the bachelor's level was not enough. I felt that it was superficial, and I felt that I needed to go deeper into a college, deeper into a subject. And secondly, I also realized when I had actually attended a summer school in IISc back when I was in undergrad. And I realized back then by talking to the alumni that the kind of jobs that open up after a master's is the pool is a little bigger than what you would get out of an undergrad. For example, I know people from my batch who are working in very different areas like compilers. Compilers is something I would not have been able to get into straight after my undergrad. A lot of my current job also involves working with compilers and cutting edge ML frameworks. Something which had not been available to me after my undergrad. So I think it opened up a lot of new job opportunities, as well as allowed me to go into depths of subjects that I really was interested in, like operating systems or compilers, things like that.
Okay, thank you. So let's move to the next question. So this is a question about the program in our CSA department. So we have different pools, and the question is about switching pools. Question is, how feasible is it to switch pools in the first or second term? Suppose I join the PhD or MTech research with a particular advisor in intelligent systems, and after the first term, I feel a greater resonance with another advisor in, say, theory pool based on the interactions. Would be encouraged to change pools if all the parties are on board. Can I request Professor Vinod to take this question?
Sure. I assume that given the nature of the question, this is a student from IISc, and even if it's not, that's okay. So pools are an internal concept. If you do want to change advisors, by the way, you have a semester or two after you join before you decide who your advisor is, right? So in your first or second term, if you're choosing your advisors, generally you go and talk to the advisor from the same pool that you interviewed, right? But if you want to go and look at other advisors from other pools, I don't see why that's not feasible. It's an internal thing. But once you have selected an advisor, if you want to change the advisor, it is possible, provided everybody is agreeable. But there's a process for that, right? It goes through the internal SERC, Senate Committee for Research Conferments. So you have to formally apply, and the dean approves or takes a decision suitably. But for this, of course, all the advisor from that you have selected and the new advisor to whom you wish to go to, both must be agreeable.
Thank you, Professor Vinod. So moving on, the next question says, is gate rank taken into consideration when a student wants to select a professor as advisor? So this is in broad the question I can sort of generalize as, how is the advisor selection process? Can I request Chandan to take this question? Chandan, are you online?
Yes.
There's a little bit of disturbances.
About now, am I audible now?
Yeah, now it's clear.
Hello.
Yeah, Chandan, we can hear you.
I think there's some issue with my mic.
Okay, so I think
Am I audible?
while Professor Chandan, yeah, I can hear you, Chandan. I can hear you.
Chandan, maybe you can go on mute and we'll come back to you in a bit.
I think Professor Chandan has some issue with his mic. Can I request Professor Narahari on advisor?
Oh, sure. Like to request Chandan to mute. Yes. Gate rank is, the answer here is very simple. Gate rank is not taken into consideration when a student wants to select a professor. Gate is a criterion only for shortlisting for the research interview. Once you have cleared the research interview here, and then you join the department, there is a well-defined process through which you will actually talk to a pool of faculty members. And after discussing with them over several months, sometimes over a full semester, then you will select a professor. I don't think any faculty member here would consider the GATE score as a criterion for selection as a student to work with him and or her. Fine, Satish. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Professor Narahari. I would also like to request the students' perspective on advisor selection. First, I would like to request Nikita, a PhD student, to share her views on advisor selection. Nikita, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yeah, thank you, sir.
Please
hope
go ahead.
I'm audible. Yeah.
Yes, clear.
Yes, as
Please go ahead.
Professor Narahari just said, the GATE rank is not taken into consideration, and I can. When I had to choose my advisor for my master's, actually I've done my master's and currently I'm doing my PhD here. So I had only approached my advisor and discussed with him what I am interested in and what project I want to do, but he did not ask me about my GATE rank. Sometimes they also look at our grades for the courses that they have offered, because that is an indication of how well we understand that subject and whether we understand the fundamentals which are required to do good research in that area. But that is all. And sometimes they would give us some papers that we can read and get back to them.
Thanks, Nikita, for your views. So moving on.
Hello
Another
everyone.
interesting
I
question.
think I lost my connection for a bit.
Nikita, please go ahead. Nikita. So we heard you, Nikita. We actually heard you.
Thanks, sir.
Yeah. So another interesting question. Is it necessary for a student to discover anything new in MTech research program? So I would like to request Prahansha Panda, who
Yes, sir.
hello, Prahansha, please share your views on it.
Yeah, I joined as an MTech research student, and currently I am pursuing my PhD. I have converted my MTech research degree to PhD. So actually, it differs. It depends on what area are you working on. So MTech research is basically a mini version of PhD. So as Professor Vinod has mentioned in his slide, if you just want to have a taste of what research is and you are not ready to give a long commitment, so you can try out MTech research. So there mostly you can work on a full problem statement, or also you can work on a sub problem, and I don't think it's compulsory, but the main motive is you should learn something new, and you should learn up to some extent about research. Hello, am I audible?
Yes, you're clear. Please go ahead. You're very clear.
Yeah, so I can just give you my experience. So I joined Professor Salam Bhatnagar's lab, SSL lab, and there he gave me some problem, like some papers to read, and then I was asked to like choose a particular area or domain. And after that, he asked me about my interest, and upon 2-3 interactive session, we came up to a problem statement, and I just started working on that. And luckily, I also got some results. Yeah, so that was my experience. And so I don't think there are much expectations from an MTech research student compared to a PhD. Yeah, so that's all from my side.
Thanks, Prahansha.
Professor Satish, can I add something to this?
Yes, please, Professor Narari, please go ahead.
I think whether it is MTech research or PhD, they're all about a deeper investigation into a carefully chosen topic. The way you choose a topic is to be completely aware of the current state of the art in the area. You go through all the flagship conferences and journals in the area, and you find out what is the contemporary research state of the art in that area. And then during this process, you will discover a research gap. And then once you are able to discover a research gap, then you will use some ideas, some novel ideas, by which you will be able to actually formulate and solve the problem. I think MTech research or PhD, they're all about some technical novelty in the way you do the things. They're all about rigor. They're all about some non-triviality in the work that you are doing, and also depth of investigation. These are essential qualifications of an MTech thesis work or a PhD work. I think awareness of the current literature and the current state of the art, and be aware of the research gaps in that particular area are extremely important. And if you are well aware of that, then in consultation with your research advisor, you will be certainly able to identify and formulate a problem and then find some very novel ways of solving that problem. That's all I have to say, Professor Satish.
Thanks very much, Professor Narahari. Moving on. Yeah, it's almost 6:30, so let's try to take as many questions as possible. What is the difference between project-based and thesis-based program exactly? Can research program be project-based? So I think this is something which is also interesting. So I would like to request Professor Vinod to share his views.
Sure. So I presume you're talking about the MTech coursework-based MTech coursework program. I encourage you to come to the March 6th session. So the MTech project that students pursue over a year, it definitely involves some new research, but it is not set to the same level of rigor. I mean, the same expectations of rigor as well as new contributions are not expected. It's slightly lesser. The MTech research, definitely we expect some novel and new contributions. The difference is sort of apparent in the way that these are evaluated. So for the project in a traditional MTech coursework program, it is evaluated internally. You should have made some novel contributions. It could have been a non-trivial, for example, addition to an existing system that your research advisors group has built. You must have been able to, add some new features to it, demonstrate it, or apply it to a new domain. Just giving you some examples. In contrast, the MTech research, which involves a thesis, involves a significant new component. You should be adding to the research literature by proposing some new ideas, build a new prototype. You should be basically leading the work there, right? So that's the main difference between a project in an MTech coursework program and a thesis in an MTech by research degree. Also, in the MTech by research degree, your thesis is evaluated by experts who are sourced from other top institutes in India, right? So they will be reviewing your thesis, and you will actually have a thesis defense in the style of a PhD thesis defense. You must stand up and defend your idea. So the standards are much higher for an MTech by research degree with a thesis.
Thanks, Vinod. So the next question is, what is the process / requirement to join a PhD from a MTech research degree? Does the progress in MTech continue in the PhD? So first we'll have faculty Professor Raghavan answering, and then I will ask Prahansha Panda, who did MTech research and then is continuing for a PhD. So first, Professor Raghavan, please.
Thank you. So actually, there are two notions of joining a PhD after MTech research. So in IISc, one is called converting. So after 1 or 2 or 3 semesters of your MTech research degree, you can quote unquote convert to PhD program. So that means that it's as if you joined the PhD program only in the beginning, right? And then you, so those 3 semesters of whatever work you did will just become part of the work of the PhD thesis. So that's called converting. The other one is to finish your MTech research and then join afresh as a PhD student. So in that case, since you have already submitted your MTech thesis, MTech research thesis, that work cannot be part of your PhD thesis work. But nonetheless, you would have gained good experience and background, which will maybe enable you to work on your PhD thesis much faster. So that is called basically starting PhD after completing MTech research. So these are 2 different modes in a way. Also, in both cases, if you whether you convert to PhD or whether you join PhD, if your previous degree was BTech, then you're eligible to earn a master's degree along with your PhD degree. If your previous degree was BTech when you joined IISc. So.
Thanks, Professor Raghavan. I would also like to request Prahansha Panda, who did her MTech research and now is doing her PhD. Prahansha, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Yeah, so I joined IISc as an MTech research student, and then for 3 semesters after my third semester, I decided to convert my degree to PhD. So, as said earlier, there are two different process. One is you can convert, and second is you can continue. So in convert, your from the starting, your date of joining of your MTech research will be considered as the date of joining of your PhD. But in continuation, you have to submit your MTech research thesis, and then your PhD will continue. So in my case, I decided to convert my degree to PhD. So for that, like an I can say meeting was scheduled and a panel was there, and I had to give a presentation of my past work and my current work and also my future work that I was going to do. And it was basically to see the amount of work that I have done and my understanding in the area that was working on. Yeah, so after that I was selected for PhD. Yeah, so that was my like experience of conversion from MTech research to PhD. So that's all.
Thank you, Prahansha. So next question is, if a candidate has a master's CGPA of 6.44 from IITs, what are the chances of being shortlisted for PhD interview? Additionally, does the CGPA play a significant role in the final selection, or is the interview performance the primary factor for final selection? Can I request Professor Vinod Ganapathy to first say, and then maybe Professor Narahari also afterwards?
Sure. So at the end of the day, whatever your GPA or GATE score is, I will just sort of generalize this. It is only to shortlist you for the interview. Once you are here, once you are participating in the interview, we solely look at your performance in the interview in deciding whether an offer is going to be made or not. So I think that, yeah, that's the answer. Professor Narahari?
Yes, I think the first part of the question, you have a CGP of 0.44 from IITs. So what happens is there is a shortlisting process that happens to select MTech graduates for PhD interview. Now, the cutoffs can vary from year to year. It pretty much depends on the pool of candidates who have applied during that particular year. There may be a year where 6.44 from an IIT will be shortlisted for the PhD interview. There could be a year where 6.44 from IIT may not be shortlisted for the PhD interview. Pretty much depends on the pool of applicants. And as Professor Vinod Ganapathy rightly said, CGPA plays a role only in selection for the interview, and the actual selection for the program here will depend purely on the interview process.
Ravindra Singh could also answer, in addition to some faculty.
Thanks, Professor Narahari. Moving on, are there any 6 to 10 month project apprenticeships for working professionals to pursue in collaboration with an IISc professor? Can I request Professor Vinod
Sure. Yeah. So generally speaking, if you are, for example, applying for an internship or a pre-doc, we have separate programs for that. But we do expect a full-time commitment. You have to be a full-time intern here or a full-time pre-doc in order to do this. Now, if you are working at a company and you want to do, an exploratory collaborative project, you can approach, the interested faculty member or the faculty member in that area through your company, right? And then what happens is that there is an MOU that is signed, and then you do the research. The complication with doing project apprenticeship when you're working with a company is that there are all sorts of legal complications with who owns the intellectual property and so on. So we prefer a formal arrangement over here. That's one answer, one part of the answer. The second is, of course, if you're exploring an ERP program, then that's different, right? I mean, you approach us through the company, you sort of talk about potential ideas, and then you formally apply to the ERP program, right? So that's my answer to that question.
Thanks, Professor Vinod. The next question, specifically for seeking industrial research roles, what benefits does a PhD bring to an applicant as against work experience in a research company or lab? So I would like Ravindra and Mayank to take these questions. Ravindra first. Ravindra, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, please go ahead.
See, there are certain sets of problems which I think as a work experience probably potentially cannot bring. I mean, it is in quest of building, for example, if you want to build a static analyzer for a program verification, then that requires a special kind of skill, and those kind of skills generally you may not get purely by work experience. Sometimes, of course, you gain that insight over a period of time, but if you can do a PhD straight away, you are trained in these kind of areas, and that will help altogether differently. Secondly, your outlook towards a problem, an industrial problem, will change dramatically. You will have more insight into the problem, and your approach with PhD towards that problem will altogether change. Just with work experience, you will look at more like a technological problem and try to solve technology. Sometimes whatever technology you pour, it may not solve your problem. So in a way, if you have a deeper problem and you want to have a problem to be looked at in a different space, PhD does bring that insight because of the rigorousness that you go through while looking at the problem. Okay, that's what it can benefit you, right? Sometimes it's also the industry problems will give insights even to the bring new thoughts even to the faculty. So it's sometimes bilateral as well. Okay, but you get potential benefit of looking at the problems in a different space altogether.
Okay, yeah. Thanks, Ravindra. Mayank, would like to add?
Yeah. So, like Ravindra sir said, in addition to that, in continuation to that, like he said, you do get a good experience in industry as well, but the experience that you get in a PhD is a bit different. To start with, you do a lot of courses here, which is absent in the industry. So in a way, you build right from the basics. And this building that you do from the basics is not very unidimensional. It is multidimensional because you do different courses, different types of courses. That is something which you will miss in the industry. There, it's a lot more straitjacketed. You're more focused on solving a particular money generating problem. Here, it's a little more diverse that way. And you go from the ground up, you do courses, you publish papers. So there's a publication audience as well. Sorry, am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah. So you have the experience of the coursework, the publications, and so that way I would say a PhD is superior to working in a research company. And also there are quite a few MNCs, at least in my knowledge, there are quite a few MNCs and quite a few roles in many different companies which do require a PhD. So that's what I would like to say.
If I may
Thanks, Mayank.
add
Yeah, please
something.
go ahead.
Yeah,
Please,
I'm
please.
quite junior when it comes to industry, but there are two key skills that I think a PhD has given me, and that gives me an edge over other people in the industry. So in industry, you need to have this T-shaped expertise where you have sufficient breadth and sufficient depth in some of the specialization. So that becomes your key specialization in the industry. So to get that key specialization, you need to spend time over it. Now, industry does not give you time to spend over a topic for a long time. You need to move on from the current technology to the next upcoming great cool technology. So if you do a PhD, there will always be a technology that you will be an expert or a master of. So that would be that would be the first advantage. Now the second advantage would be, which I think was my key takeaway from a PhD, was it tells you how to learn things and learn things fast. So whatever you are working on your PhD, that probably will go out of fashion at some point in time with the industry. But what you will get are the skills to learn any new technology faster than any other person in your industry. And this is how they will train you in PhD. So that's the second advantage of doing a PhD. You will never learn that skill to understand a technology with all its rigor and all its depth as fast as a PhD can. So that's the two key takeaways for a PhD over working for a long time in a research lab.
Thanks, Nigda. Okay. Moving on. Another interesting question. We heard about novelty and discovery in one's work. How difficult is it to discover? Is there a method to such discovery? Right. So you're asking about the research process, which is an ongoing process, not just for students and even for faculty members. So I would like to request Vishaka, followed by Dhruvin, to share their views on these questions. Vishaka first. Vishaka.
Yes, sir. So when it comes to research, okay, this question is slightly tricky to answer. So how difficult is it to discover? Yes, it is difficult. The level of difficulty would depend on the kind of questions you're working on, also the area that you're working in. So just to give an analogy, I think most of us are used to solving like the questions in exercises in textbooks, right? The thing that we know there is that those questions do have an answer. The only question is whether or not you arrive at it or not. With research questions, say if you're trying to prove something, there's no guarantee that what you're trying to prove can actually be proved or not. So yeah, in terms of that, there's nobody to tell you that, okay, this can be solved or this cannot be solved. So that sort of introduces the difficulty in this. Also, is there a method? Okay, so there's no like step-by-step guide which you can follow, and at the end of it, you'll end up solving a research problem. But there are some things which can help you along the way, which is like making sure that your fundamental subjects are very strong. You have a good set of people around you to discuss things with, and things like this. So I think it's not easy to quantify what we mean by difficulty here. But yeah, in general, if you have a good set of fundamentals and you have a good advisor who can sort of give you directions or tell you, okay, this has something already been tried and you shouldn't look here and things like that, then the process does get easier in some sense. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thanks, Vishaka. Dhruvin, do you want to share your views from an MTech research?
Yeah, I have just started working on my research problem. So I'm a first year MTech research student. So for me, currently I'm just reading literature and meeting with my advisor is what I'm doing right now. So like we are making plan like how to tackle the problem. So that's what I'm doing currently.
Okay, thank you. Gokulnath, you have completed your MTech research. Do you want to share your views? Gokulnath, can you hear me? Yeah, probably not. Prahansha?
Hello, am I audible?
Yeah. Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, so I can share my experience. So um, last year, around this time only, I have started doing my literature survey and all. And the first work is to you have to go through all those literature survey and all so that you can get an idea about what work has been done. That is very important. After that, you can discuss with your supervisor and you will get a problem statement. So, as this question is concerned, how difficult is it to discover? Like, you do not have to create a new whole problem or something. Like, you just need to make a small new contribution. For example, in my case, there was an algorithm and I had to study the finite time convergence properties of that algorithm. So that algorithm was already there, and its asymptotic convergence properties were already studied, but its finite time convergence properties was not studied. So I worked on that, and before that, I went through several papers where this kind of work was being done. So it really helped me, and yeah, so that was my first work. So that's all. Like you, that type of work is expected, or yeah. So that's all.
Thanks, Prahansha. Nikita, do you want to quickly share your experiences? Nikita, can you hear me? Nikita, I think you're muted.
One rules-based question. I think we should wind up.
Okay, so that's fine. So let's move along. We're almost out of time. The next question, is there a set number of seats for MTech research and PhD, or are they variable? If the latter, does it mean there's a bias in selection for PhD students over MTech research students? Can I request Professor Vinod Ganapathy to answer this question?
Sure. So every year we are allotted a number of research seats by the institute that we fill during the research interviews week.
Hello,
So
everyone.
that is dependent on the
Yes,
number
sir.
of vacancies
Hello.
that the institute has. So we
Hello.
consider the process for both MTech research as well as PhD at the same time. There is no bias, although we strongly encourage students to come in for a PhD. And yes, there is a set number of seats for research. And within that, we sort of internally look at how many we can take for MTech research and PhD. There is no set number for them.
Vinod also said we can close.
So, okay, so I think we had very interesting questions from all of you. And more than, I think, close to about 1.5 hour session answering your questions. So it was nice for you to ask these questions. And we hope that your questions are answered and you have a much better picture about our research programs, and that you apply for our research programs. So the deadline for application is March 22nd by midnight, and all details are there in the IISc admissions portal. So anything regarding the application submission, kindly refer to the IISc admissions portal. I would like to thank the faculty and I would like to thank the faculty, the students, and the alumni for giving their views and answering all your questions. A big thank you, and also for the participants for attending this session. We hope that it was very useful for you. We will try to put all these questions as an FAQ in our department homepage, which the link of which will be shared to you. So kindly look out for it. Thanks once again to everyone. We will be closing the session right now.
So Professor Satish, if I may say, some of them may be interested in the MTech course programs also, especially the BTech graduates. So they're all most welcome to the Wednesday session, which also will commence at 5:15 p.m. And of course, they have access to the link for that program from the CSA webpage. So
yes. Yeah, we'll have a similar session for the MTech course program on Wednesday at 5:15. Interested participants, please do join us on Wednesday as well. Thank you very much. Thanks for everyone, and we will be closing the session right now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.